Good morning. It's Wednesday, December 3rd. This is TheStreet Live, and I'm Catherine Ross. We're joined by Jim Cramer. Jim, the markets are essentially flat right now. So what are you
Right.
watching in the markets today?
Well, look, Salesforce did a deal, and 7 out of 7 analysts hated it. When I say hated, I mean like they just said, like, how could this have ever happened? A variety of reasons, paid too much. Mark said he wasn't going to do any M&A. Slack is a losing proposition. You can't take on Microsoft. These people are all wrong. What Mark is doing is creating a 360 where he wants to be able to make it so that the best product wins. People think that Slack is usually far superior to anything Microsoft offers, that many of the enterprises have wanted him to do this. And Mark has a history of doing excellent acquisitions, including MuleSoft, Tableau, Demandware, ExactTarget. So those who think, I mean, he's always said, look, the best companies are companies often that got away from the before you could buy them. But once they're in the public market, that doesn't mean they're just done. So I believe that this will take some time, and then Salesforce will start going up again.
And Jim, one of the biggest news items of today is Pfizer, because their vaccine was approved by the UK and could possibly start being rolled out starting next week. So
Right.
For US investors, should we be watching this rollout in the UK to kind of gauge how it's going to happen in the US?
Definitely. You know, this is the first news that has really moved the needle. Pfizer. It does show that Pfizer has the capability of maybe far more vaccines than people realize. 40 million means 20 million people are going to get it. That's a lot of people. And I would point out that the bottleneck happen in our country is only just from a few areas that are not covered by a Walgreens, are not covered by a Walmart, not covered by a CVS, or some of the other providers, some of the other pharmacists. And we will be ready to go the moment that the FDA says yes. I think the pressure on the FDA is going to be remarkable, given the fact that the UK health system is no slouch. They've got a pretty good health system. So I think that this is very good news for our country, and it's not being greeted as it should in the stock market.
Jim, obviously we have some exciting news from McDonald's this morning with the MCRIB being reintroduced, but over on Mad Dash this morning, you were talking about the stock, and it kind of led me to wonder, we've seen McDonald's come out with all these new items or reintroducing items such as the MCRIB, and
Right.
is this enough for investors to get hyped about their long-term?
I mean, I was surprised. Look, they met with the analysts who cut numbers, met with the company and just said that there's some issues having to do with mobility of customers. Those are issues that are not dogging Chipotle. Chipotle has seemed to be able to come up with the best way to be able to make it so in a new no seating world, restaurant, or people not wanting to go there, they can still make a ton of money. I mean, maybe this means that a lot of people really did go to McDonald's and sit there, and that's done, or that's minimized. And that's what I want to know. McDonald's was cryptic, but obviously the numbers aren't being made.
Over on Stop Trading, Jim, you were talking about Thermo Fisher and how it's not really looked at in this market. It is up 50% over the past year. But compared to stocks, I mean, we've got like Tesla that's always in the headlines. I mean, how can Thermo Fisher maybe stop being as overlooked?
Well, they're not promoters. They did raise guidance yesterday at a meeting. Mark Casper has quietly built a company, a $200 billion company that is the gold standard, the PCR standard. You can't really, I mean, as much as I like Abbott Labs, they have not offered anything as good as what Thermo Fisher offers. Thermo is a company like Danaher that has just done a remarkable job in life sciences, and they are instrumental in the process of developing new drugs, more even than Charles River. I just think Thermo Fisher is a company. We own Thermo Fisher. We made a ton of money for Action Alerts. Obviously left it too soon. Stock's been coming down. It is down 50 points from its high. I think it's a buy.
So, Jim, based on what you just said, I want to take a step back, and I want to, broach a subject that we haven't really talked about in a while, which is direct investing education. For investors who are currently looking for a stay-at-home play that's maybe more loosely tied to this play, not directly like a Zoom or an Amazon, what's their first piece of homework?
So in other words, you're trying to find a company that is betting that the COVID experience is longer or shorter.
Let's go with longer.
Okay, for longer, the way I would start looking at that if I were a younger investor is I would take a look at the companies. First of all, you can always tell by looking at the Kramer COVID 100 index. And this is well researched, and the top 10 are where to go. Those are companies that we analyze the biggest sensitivity to. And any one of those, I think, would be good enough as a starting point. Then you Google, you get the articles, if you can get some research, you can decide whether it's too further along. But that's the list. And it took a tremendous amount of work for us to compile it, and I would just use it.
Jim, last night you sat down with the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, to talk about their acquisition of Work. And this is Salesforce's biggest acquisition ever. Some investors seem worried or concerned about this acquisition. Talk to me about your experience sitting down with Mark and whether or not you think that this is the best time for Salesforce to be going up against Microsoft.
Okay, so I think that what Mark is trying to do is put together a coalition of the companies that are most amenable to building a kind of a 360 work experience. And every time it seems like every time he checked with customers, they wanted to do Slack. But Microsoft has made it so that if you wanted to do Slack, they'll cut the price of the bundle. They'll make it so that there's something Stuart Butterfield, the CEO of Slack, has told me. They basically offer what I regard as being anti-competitive behavior. And what Mark is saying is, look, we'll get 3 times the amount of revenue from Slack than they can get now because we'll be bundled and they won't have to be worried so much about Microsoft. And I think that's true. I mean, I think that Mark has the ideal, except for Amazon Web Services, web data. He's got a fabulous email product right now, an exact target. And this will enable it so that because of the way that Slack is set up, that he can have all the verticals he wants and support all the verticals. And so it's a very, very smart acquisition. Was it too much? Okay. Well, I mean, could you have waited for Slack to get even worse in terms of its market cap? I guess so. But the fact is that if you go read the clippings involved in the lawsuit, because the lawsuit is sealed in EU, but you will recognize that what's happened is that Slack would be doing so much better if Microsoft weren't crimping it. And now they won't. So even if it's just an acquisition where Mark just says, okay, well, look, try to use Slack, it would do better than it's doing now. But it's not. And he's going to integrate Slack into the platform just like everything else.
Jim, are you at all concerned that investors may not fully understand what Salesforce does and that adding Slack might just muddy the waters a little bit?
No one's understood it since it was $8 unless you brought it in, like we did it at Fractional Alerts. I mean, we brought in Salesforce, and we got a 30% lift in our business, which is rather remarkable. I mean, we thought we were doing well and got a 30% lift, and we didn't bring it in because of me. We brought it in because people realized, you know what? The way you'd be able to build your sales is with Salesforce. And, I never forgot it. Look, I like Mark. He and I are doing the xprize.org/mask initiative. That was my idea, and he quickly joined it. He's been a friend of mine. If you ask my wife, the oddity of our wedding was that he was there at 3:30 with me and Lisa, and he said, so what are we doing next? And we said we wanted to go to bed, and he wanted to go out to eat. I mean, Mark is just a larger-than-life character, and I do love him. I know it's not about friends, it's about money, but, periodically you just do some things where he was, he has just introduced me to some fabulous charities, including the Benioff Children's Hospital. My wife lost her daughter, and so we spend anything that we can for children's pediatrics, and there's Mark, who built a children's hospital. So, I mean, life, some of these things are larger than life, certainly larger than business. But I would not, if I felt that Slack that he paid too much was a bad idea, I would just say, listen, I love Mark. I wish he hadn't done this. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying I love Mark, and this is going to be part of the great suite that he offers.
Jim, I want to talk to you a bit about the economy. I want to start with the ADP jobs report, which noted that private sector hiring really slowed in November.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got to understand. We're at the cusp of the Mitch McConnell depression, meaning Mitch McConnell does not let the additional. He's bottling up about $1 trillion that is needed. I know that this money goes to states, and they hate that because there's states that they just don't like because they voted for Trump. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's like South Carolina during the nullification. Lincoln didn't want South Carolina to succeed, but hey, they did what was right for their region. And I think that McConnell's really caught up in this whole thing about what's, red state and blue state. But what he doesn't realize is that he is one of the main reasons why I am backing Walmart and Costco and Amazon for action alerts, because I am so confident that the Republicans will destroy small, medium-sized business by holding back this money that I think the numbers are way too low for Walmart, Amazon, and Costco, as well as Target and Home Depot, because those are the guys who wipe out companies. I know this because my father, I used to look at the old invoices to how many incredible number of small, medium-sized businesses that were destroyed by Walmart. So, I mean, it's pretty clear. Maybe McConnell doesn't even mean it. Maybe he doesn't even want more than 3 Costco's in Kentucky. But he's a great reason to stay long these stocks, because he's trying to block this thing, and it is just huge for Walmart, Amazon, and Costco, because the 40% of the businesses, small businesses, are already that are failing, are already in the process. They're going to lay off a lot of people. McConnell, I think, in the name of I'm not clear, is going to wipe out a lot of small, medium-sized businesses. And I've always felt that the Republicans were who I look to help small, medium-sized businesses. But this is just another reason to buy Walmart, Amazon, and Costco. Hang on, McConnell's in your camp.
And Jim, based on this ADP jobs report, when we get the November jobs report, is a bad number going to be enough to change McConnell's mind, do you think, or are we going to hear this?
I mean, I think he's very pro the Walmarts, and no, I don't think it changes his mind. I think he recognizes that big business should be supported, just like small business. I think you see all those ads about think small and buy small. I think he's from the other side. I think he's big, think big. And that's, as a shareholder, my trust says I hope that they think big. Now, as someone with a heart, I would like the smaller guys to make it. But as someone who's running a charitable portfolio, I see money when I can get it. And that's Senator McConnell. He's money. People think I'm being facetious. I mean, I'm not being facetious. I mean, you wipe out the small, medium-sized business, there's a vacuum. And the vacuum is filled by Walmart, it's Amazon, it's filled by Target, by Costco, by Home Depot. And that's why those stocks should be bought, because I don't think McConnell's going to budge, because he's not thinking about that. But he may be pro-big business. I don't know.
What about Darden, Jim? Would that be a stock to buy if we don't see a stimulus bill?
The problem with Darden is McDonald's note that we got today says that McDonald's is having problems with serving food. So that's not good news for Darden. If that stock's up, it should be sold.
All right, Jim, we're going to head over to our Action Alerts Plus Daily Rundown show, which is exclusive for members. And you're going to want to hear what Jim has to say, especially about Salesforce, because that is such a big deal. So with that, I'm Catherine Ross. We'll see you tomorrow.